Throughout history, free thinkers have outraged the religious with their wacky ideas about the virtues of free speech, reason, and of course, eating babies. Now, God is dying, and it's time to dispose of his remains. From the pits of hell, Satan sends two puppets of the imperialist West and the Zionist Jews against God, Islam, and tiny kittens to bring you their propaganda and conspire for a new world order. This is Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment with Ali Rizvi and Armin Navabi.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi. Armin isn't here this week, but we're going to go ahead with it anyway because we always do without Armin. He'll be back next time. So today, I've actually been pursuing this guest for a while. He's a stand-up comedian. His name is Jaffer Khan. And before we start talking to him or doing anything, I just want to play. I'm going to share this. I'm going to play a short clip of one of his bits.
You're white? Yeah? You woke? He said, uncertain in the face of a POC, that's woke. Good job, dude. Good job. You are going to survive 2020. I know it's scary for you right now. Scary for y'all. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it a little too much. My favorite thing right now is watching woke white people struggle with exactly how much they're supposed to embrace Islam. Yeah, it's complicated. And wokeness does not do well with nuance, right? It crumbles. I'll give you, so here's my example. In Norway last year, they implemented a burqa ban, a ban on wearing the burqa in public. A lot of progressive European countries are doing this because the burqa is oppressive to women. So, Brooklyn, we're gonna do a fun little poll, and everyone has to participate. I can see you. I don't care how terrified and white you are. You have to pick a side, okay? Pick a side. So clap, make some noise right now if you were leaning more towards being against a ban on burqas. Okay, good. A lot of y'all. A lot of enemies of Muslim women. Keep them down. Put it back on. The neighbors are coming. That's y'all. Cool. Okay, other side. Clap. Make some noise if you are leaning more towards supporting a ban on burqas. Thank you. One courageous, one racist Islamophobe in the corner. Cool. Great crowd we have here in Brooklyn.
All right. Jaffer Khan, welcome. Hold on. Let me stop sharing the screen for those people who are watching this on video. I didn't tell you this when we were talking before, but the video podcast, like our patrons, the people who support us, they get to see you on video and they get to see actually the clip. Everybody else is going to be able to hear it. So welcome to the podcast, and thank you for coming on and taking out.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a great clip. So, first of all, how are you doing in quarantine? I mean, you're a stand-up comedian. You're in New York City, so supposed to go
Brooklyn.
out.
I mean, I'm in Williamsburg, so Williamsburg. We're always in the center of pandemics and diseases, but things are, it's weird, but it's everything's closed. I don't know how similar other cities are to New York right now. I know that obviously we're the epicenter, but over here, everything's closed and you go outside, you wear a face mask, keep your distance, and just trying to cope with, isolation. But, I'm fine. I'm doing.
Yeah, just a sense
right.
of, I thought, because I remember I wrote to you about getting you on some time ago, and then, you're obviously busy because you're a working comedian, so you tend to go out at night and you work at nights. And that's usually when we end up recording. So when the quarantine happened, it was one of the first things I thought of. I was like, oh yeah, so he's probably not working.
Nope, I'm not working.
Yeah, selfish reasons.
You shouldn't even be calling me a comedian on this show. I'm an unemployed person right now.
Yeah, so So you're from. I just want to get said, especially with this when it comes to this podcast. I mean, you're from a background where you grew up in Houston. You come from a Muslim family, right?
Yes.
And so you grew up there, and somehow you sound from your routines that you become more secular, and it's and you found your way into comedy. So this is probably a long story, but I'm really curious to hear it. So how did it start? Were you born in Houston, or are you born and raised here?
Yeah. This will take a while. But
go for it.
There's a lot of little fun things. Feel free to jump in whenever. But yeah, I was born in Houston to parents. My dad, very religious Muslim, but not religious. Like, I don't believe in any of it, but I do respect my dad's faith. He has, as far as religiosity goes, he's open-minded and he's non-judgmental, and he never tried to force it on me. He had real faith, and he understands that you can't force faith onto someone. If they don't believe, they don't believe. So it wasn't a big issue when I told my parents I was no longer. But the other thing is that my dad's very religious. My mom is very non-religious. My mom, which is interesting. And it was actually one of the reasons they got married was because at the time my dad was also non-religious, and my mom, they both grew up in Karachi, Pakistan, and sort of, how a lot of marriages goes in those communities, sort of like, our son is looking for a wife. Oh, our daughter is looking for a husband. We like each other. Let's see if it works out. And so that was like that was a major thing for my mom. She doesn't want to marry a Muslim man, doesn't want a typical Muslim life. And then, obviously they got along and they got married. And then it wasn't until like later on, like right before I was born, right as I was being raised as a baby, when my dad became very religious. Mm-hmm. And growing up, that was always a weird tension I felt with my parents. And so I talk about this on stage a lot. But I remember like when I finally, because they didn't tell me that, my mom wouldn't tell me, and my parents wouldn't tell me the truth behind the religiosity of my dad versus my mom. They just told me, oh, mom is just less religious. They didn't say the truth, where mom hates all of this. She has all this deep-seated resentment against my dad for believing in God, which is, just a funny thing to fight over. But like when I finally, again, I talk about this on stage, but like when I finally told my parents, I sat them down to tell them, I think you need to know I don't believe in any of this anymore. I was very afraid of my parents' reaction, but my parents' reaction was my mom turning to my dad like, ha, in your face, right? 2v1 now, but it wasn't exactly like that. That's something I make that scene up for the sake of comedy. But one thing, there were real moments that were really funny. So this is a real moment for my life. Still in high school. Now we're all open. I don't believe in God. My mom's spiritual. He doesn't believe in Islam. My dad, very religious. There's this weird tension. My mom always had this resentment towards my dad for believing in God. And it would come out in little ways. I remember one time I was asking my mom if I can go, pick up some pizza for dinner. I was asking for a little bit of money. I was like, all right, Jaffer, you can go. And I was like, all right, mom, I'm going to get a pepperoni pizza and I'm going to get a cheese pizza. And my mom was like, well, who's the cheese pizza for? I was like, it's for dad because he doesn't eat pork because he's Muslim. Remember, mom? My mom was just like, ugh. She was like visibly annoyed. So that I have like a long bit about all this, but it all like forms around that one real moment that happened where my mom rolled her eyes because we had to get a cheese pizza for our Muslim dad. So yeah, definitely had a abnormal upbringing when it comes to Islam.
Yeah, that's so. What is it? Because usually a lot of times I've seen that it's the other way around with a lot of sort of young secular atheist agnostic people from the Muslim community, is that their fathers are not very religious, but the mother is very religious. So your mother, you said right from the time before she got married, when she was growing up in Pakistan, somehow she just developed this thing against religion. She just decided to leave it, or just didn't want somebody as religious. How did that come about? Have you talked to your mom about that?
Yeah, I have. Actually, pretty recently. Yeah, my mom. I don't know. I can't really speak for my mom because I don't know much about this, but I know her father, someone a lot of people really looked up to, and he was just a very open-minded guy. So, and you know, he passed away, but I remember like going through. I always knew him as a very like just an intelligent, as a thinking man. But you know, he was Muslim and he was practicing. But like I came across all his books, and he had so many books on like Buddhism and Hindu philosophy. So he was just a man of. He was a truth-seeking man, and so he sort of imparted that on his kids. So my mom, like, I don't know much, but I've always gotten the feeling that my mom was pretty open, like I was, to her father about her questions, and he was open with taking her questions. And so she also, I believe, was not really pressured. So she was lucky in that regard as well. And yeah, and so she just was open and was able to be, as a young Pakistani girl, kind of questioning all that. And her dad was supported that.
Well, that's great. And it's actually kind of uncommon, especially in Pakistan, because I grew up in Pakistan. I lived in, I think 5 or 6 years in Karachi, and I lived in Lahore as well. I was born in Lahore. And just generally, the society there is a lot tougher. But I mean, a lot is an understatement. It's almost infinitely tougher on women. And generally, women who are not religious are considered, I mean, even women, at least when I was growing up there, women who wore jeans in marketplaces, they were just thought to be, well, they're asking for it, right? So if there was a woman who talked about skepticism about being Muslim, then it was just assumed that she's loose character. The only reason she wants to leave Islam is because she wants to meet boys and have sex and drink alcohol or whatever. That's it. I mean, there's a lot of really harsh sort of societal judgment there.
Yeah.
And did your mom go through any of that, or was she very open about the way she thought? I mean, having a supportive father really helps, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think she. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much. I know my mom. My mom seemed to be very happy and very secure. That's something my mom's really passed down on me. She's very self-assured and very secure with who she is, and I know her father has a lot to do with that. So, and her dad was a very like just sort of like a force, like a big person, and so her being a part of that world and the world of her father, and her father fully supporting her, seemed to, you know, she didn't seem to be under attack from everyone. And that being said, I'm also sure my mom wasn't like this completely outspoken person about it. Like, I'm sure, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think she was touting that everywhere she went, but it was something she was able to express to people immediately around her and feel comfortable doing so. And my dad, you know, my dad, he was a man. So for him, it was infinitely easier. And I know during that, like in his youth, you know, in his 20s, he was, you know, reading Bertrand Russell, and he was very, I don't know how my dad made a 180-degree turn. So my dad has so much confidence that I'm going to end up making the same turn, because, you know, we always argue. My dad's also, believe it or not, a Republican, devout Muslim Republican. Yeah. And so, you know, we argue about, when I was young, when I was a teenager, we argue about religion, but now I'm older, we argue about politics. And my dad will laugh at my views with this confidence of knowing, like, he really believes that I'm going to do a 180-degree turn and go from like a leftist atheist to a Republican Muslim, just like him, because he went through the same thing. But I don't know how anyone can do that, but my dad did. He managed it. So
yeah, the Republican Muslim thing is, there's actually quite a lot of them. I have some in my extended family too, and it always brings, especially nowadays in the Trump age, it's amazing. But then you think, you know, you're like, well, social conservatism, you know, a lot of, especially Pakistani people I've noticed who come to the US or come to Canada, they usually, they tend to be sort of capitalist minded, and at the same time they tend to be socially conservative too.
Yeah, it's less about Trump and more about just worshiping the free market.
Right.
Worshipping Allah, worshipping the free market.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's I don't know if you have a bit about that, but I think that could be. But there's so when your dad became religious, right, and your mom had specifically looked for somebody who hadn't become that way, then how did that change things? Because I know you said that they're fighting over whether
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into details, but yeah, like
sure,
it caused issue, like not inherent to the belief itself, but it caused like certain external things would happen, like once you start becoming a religious person, where my dad maybe wanted to make decisions that my mom didn't agree with, and but those issues held up a larger, broader issue of just the whole thing of just like this frustration of like, I wanted to, a big reason why I married you was because I didn't want this typical life, and now we're both here. So from what I would see growing up is just those little moments of like my mom rolling her eyes, and I just thought that was so strange. Like, why does mom get bothered so much that dad believes in God? Who cares? Like, I don't believe in God anymore. I'm not mad at dad for believing in God. But then as I got older, and I would really just hear more of both my parents talk, and also just understand about relationship dynamics more as an adult, then I could see how it's more than just someone believing something and someone not believing something. When two people are married, those outlooks on life, have consequences on how you want to live your shared life, and
how you want to raise your kids too, right? Like,
and that would cause tension and stuff. But the way I would see it, which is like, again, my mom rolling her eyes at the concept of cheese pizza versus pepperoni pizza. But I'm sure there's huge battles that they had.
Do you have other siblings as well? Or is it just you?
Yeah, I have a little sister.
Oh, okay. And so did it impact her, or is she kind of going through her own journey? Or
our family is basically split 50-50. So my sister is Muslim. Mm-hmm. So it's her and my dad versus me and my mom. I mean, we're a happy family, so we all get along. Everything's fine, but it is split.
It's actually a lot like my family. So my family's also kind of split. That there are different levels of religiosity / spirituality.
Exactly. Yeah.
But everybody gets along, and I think that's one of the things that's tough for me to understand about a lot of because when I first started doing this, and I started talking about my sort of just my evolution, the same kind of thing that you went through when I went through it. I started talking about it mainly, I think, around 2007, 2008, and I started writing about it. And I think I wrote sort of one thing as I started writing about U.S. politics. That was my main thing. And I wrote one article about being secular or being an atheist from the Muslim world. And suddenly I started getting all these messages. And I started getting emails from pretty much all over the place. And I've talked about this before on the show, like from Egypt and Malaysia and Pakistan, young gay kids in Saudi Arabia, where I grew up. And the stories I was hearing, and I heard there was a girl in Canada who wrote to me who was a lesbian, and she was about to be married to her first cousin in 3 weeks. Yeah. She wrote to me, and she's like, I don't believe it. And she used to wear a burqa because her family made her. And so the whole thing was, I just realized that this was so much more serious than I thought it would be. And I also,
we were both lucky that it was easy for us to, get out of it.
Yeah, we're very privileged. I mean, the one thing that you do this in a joking way, but there are a lot of layers to the way that you write your jokes. Like it's very smart when you that clip that you had that kind of went viral, the one true religion.
Yeah.
Where you talked about how Muslims actually really do believe in.
Yeah, that bit is dear to my heart because it comes from growing up. I grew up with my American friends that I really loved, and again, I was lucky that my parents allowed me to become so close with my American friends. I knew a lot of like our Desi family friends, like their parents wouldn't let them really have American friends,
You mean like non-Muslim American friends?
Yeah. So they wouldn't get brainwashed by the West, but I remember like, being the one Muslim, in class but especially when I go have sleepovers, we were young kids, so we just like kind of make fun of each other. It was all good natured, but I'd get teased for my Muslim beliefs, whatever. But I knew in the back of my head, because my dad would teach me about other religions as well. And these American Christians aren't really learning about other religions. If you're the majority, you just don't really have as much of a reason to. But if you're a minority in a country, then it makes sense to teach your minority child about the majority and what they believe.
Yeah.
So like I knew that my Muslim beliefs were not any more strange than their Christian beliefs, but I knew that Muslims just take the religion more seriously. So yeah, we pray 5 times a day. We have these certain restrictions, but it's like I knew as Christians they also had restrictions. They just didn't follow any of them. They just get to live in this nice medium of like modern, American prosperity, where they just go to church once a week and don't really have to do anything else.
Yeah.
So I always had this in my head where it's like, y'all think my religion's weird, but it's not. We just actually follow our religion. That's what makes us weird. Your religion's weird too. You just don't follow it. So you get to kind of laugh at us. So that's where that bit came from. Islam is the one true religion. And I said, because I start with Jewish people, then Christians and Muslims. And basically I order it in terms of, obviously I'm making huge generalizations, but I'm ordering it in like, intensity of religiosity.
Right.
So
right.
Jews in America are pretty much secular, right? So I start with them, and then I go down to Christians, and then finally we see Muslims, and that's sort of the point I make at the end. Like that's why Muslims are so crazy to us, because they actually follow the religion religiously. We're not used to that. The bit's funny. Watch the bit. I'm not going to do the bit, but I'm
gonna put a link to it in the description. So if you're listening to this on iTunes or YouTube, if you just go look up this show online, you're going to see the link to the description to some of the best bits that Jaffer has up. Not a whole lot of them yet. I hope that there's more to come. I'm pretty sure there will be, but the stuff that's out there is just gold. Man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
it's just with stand up, it's like your material is more precious than like as a musician, because if you put out a song, people can listen to that song over and over again and enjoy it. But when you put out a joke, you listen to a joke one time, you laugh. You listen to it the next time, you're not going to laugh. It loses its value once it's heard before. So that's why stand ups, it's more precious. Like to give out our material, to put it out there. We're sort of sacrificing it. I can't do it live anymore if it's out there. So you want to sort of hold on to it until you can get paid for it. And, I haven't put out an album or a special. So all that stuff I put out for free, so I'm trying to,
it's great because there's a lot of people I think who know you now from it. But so we're going to talk about a little bit about the stand up and how you got into that. That's actually very, very interesting in that. But, I was going to ask you one thing before that. Yeah. So what was your evolution in this? So you talked about, your dad and became more religious. Your mother was sort of always non-religious. What was it? Was it influence from your mom? Was it discussions? Was it a slow process? Was it just a one-day realization?
It was
certain experiences.
Here's how I put it. It was a slow process of the doubt of religion was
Oh, 1 second. Jaffer, if you hear me, you froze. Let me just get it back. 1 second.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back. You're back. So I'll
Okay,
make a note
cool.
of that. Hold on. And then so you were saying the doubt of religion was.
Yeah, the doubt was always there, and it was growing, but the fear, it's the doubt versus the fear of going to hell, so the fear was beating the doubt most of my life, even though the doubt was there, like I remember like a big conversation for me when I was young. Me and my dad were reading the Quran. He was teaching me about Adam and Eve and how, evolution's not real. We all came from these two people. And so, like, as a kid, you have that very obvious question. Or so we all came from two people, Dad. Yes. Okay. So Adam and Eve, they had kids. And then what happened? Well, then they had kids. I'm like, okay, well, how did they have kids with their kids and travel all around the world and rediscover each other with different races and not be, mentally handicapped in the process? And my dad, just the typical answer, well, that's just God, that's just how great God is. He just pulls it off. And that was like I was like, this is crazy. But again, I kept the doubts at bay because you still have that fear in you, you don't want to go to hell and any of that. But it was my junior year in high school. When I was 17, I sort of had like my 1968, where a lot of things, I don't know what happened first, but I started, I accepted that I don't believe in God. I started experimenting with like drinking and smoking, and I started getting into sort of like leftist philosopher, dipping my toes into like leftist philosophy as much as I could understand as a teenager. Mm-hmm. And also stand-up comedy. I got into really like sort of truth-telling comedians who, when George Carlin and Bill Hicks would talk about religion, it made so much sense to me. And like it helped me not feel afraid of not believing in God anymore, seeing those voices and how popular they were. I'm like, okay, there's something to this other side. And so then it all snowballed into one big thing when I was 17, and then I came out on the other side of all of it. Yeah,
and then you sat down with your parents and you told them.
I don't know. I don't know if I did like that. Like I mentioned, like that part of the bit is sort of like dramatized, as I guess they would say, because my dad must have known. Like I was asking all these questions. I was actively debating him. So he knew, and I'm sure there was a point where I did directly tell them, but I don't think it was this dramatic, like, let me sit everyone down and,
Yeah. And did you, was there anything, so I think one of the things, the stand-up comedy was a big thing for me too. Like George Carlin was just, I don't know how many times I've heard all of his albums. And I remember like when when my dad died in 2001, this is another thing. Whenever, went through hard times, like stand-up comedy and music are the two things that sort of got me through. So every night I would listen to like a George Carlin album, just completely got my mind off things. And I remember I just associate that with it. And then I met his daughter, Kelly Carlin. I met her at a conference that both of us were speaking at.
Wow.
And this was just, I think it was about 5 or 6 years after George Carlin had died.
Yeah.
So that's the first
thing. He died in like
08,
right? Remember he died like around when I was graduating high school.
That's right. Yeah. So when he died, so I remember telling him, I was like, that's the first thing I told him. I was like, when my dad died, right, I was listening to like George Carlin records every night. So when he died, it actually traumatized me.
Yeah. Wow.
It was really, because I kind of grew up with him, and I have all of his stuff essentially memorized. Like, it was brilliant. How did you, you started getting into stand-up comedy when you were 17, right? I guess some of the truth-telling comedians you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I was into stand-up before that. I love Dave Chappelle. Honestly, this is it's not, it's not that embarrassing. My first stand-up comedian that I fell in love with was Dane Cook. I was like 13, 14 years old.
Jaffer, that's pretty embarrassing.
It's not, he gets a lot of flack.
I'm kidding.
No, I know, but whatever. I was 13, 14, and his comedy, I think, was kind of for younger people. Maybe not. It doesn't matter, but Dane Cook, I think, was the person who was out, maybe like, wow, stand up, this is cool. And then Chappelle Show, and then Dave Chappelle, I fell in love with really like, intelligent comedy, and then intelligent stand up. But I was always, I loved South Park. South Park was one of my first loves in comedy. And that's a very like, critical thinking, married to comedy sort of a thing. But yeah, you're right. I've appreciated comedy at a new level when I was 17. I got into all those comedians who were sort of challenging, norms. And then I loved comedy. I loved music. And, I would play guitar and stuff, but it never crossed my mind I could do comedy. But then I was in college. I delivered pizza with this guy. We were all college kids. It was a college town, so everyone who worked there were all college kids. And yeah, he mentioned to me that there was an open mic in this little college town where he does comedy, tells jokes. It never crossed my mind you can just do that. So then I just thought I'd try it out, and I quickly got the hang of it. I remember it took me 2 open mics where I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Didn't even understand what a joke was. And then something clicked after the second one, and then I wrote all these new jokes, and then they worked. And then I was like, one of the better comedians in that little college town. But then after I graduated, I went to Texas A&M's little college town. After I graduated, moved back to Houston. Didn't really have a plan of what to do with my life. I moved back in with my parents. I quietly decided not to go to grad school. I didn't really tell them that until I should have told them that way earlier than I did.
What did you do in college? What did you study in college?
I studied psychology.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that's perfect for what you do.
I mean, not really. Psychology is just, people say that a lot, but, I was learning about like neurotransmitters and stuff, it doesn't really, but where was I?
Yes, you moved back to
Houston. Once I moved back to Houston, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, how to apply my fucking psych degree into the workforce. But while I was doing that, I was like, hey, there's this whole Houston comedy scene, an actual city comedy scene. And I started doing, stand up there. And then I was surprised at how I was starting to achieve success there pretty quickly. And then I was like, maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to give this a serious thought instead of having it just be a fun hobby. I told my mom, she cried. But, as I started getting real success there, I kept updating my mom. Like, I have like some like indie newspaper wrote an article about me, and I showed it to my mom. So my mom, not so that she could be proud of me, but so that she could be less worried about me and feel like, okay, maybe there is something to this. So yeah. And then I was also like I was a teacher as well. So, I mean, I wasn't making any money doing comedy. I'm still not really.
Right. You're a high school teacher, right?
Yeah, I was when I was in Houston.
And I saw like when you posted the One True Religion clip, that there was, I think one of your former students was like, oh, this guy was my high school teacher, and this totally blew me away. I had no idea.
Yeah. A lot of people will post things like that are fake. I don't know. People are so strange on the internet. Like, there's attention seeking. So like people are posting. I remember I did like some like I got this comment on multiple, but a lot that I was suspicious of. But one I was able to like do some investigation on, where this guy was like, yeah, this guy who's my teacher, can't believe it, da da da. And I was like, who is this kid? And I looked him up, and his birth date was like listed. Like, there's just no way I taught this kid on this YouTube subscriber. He was just making it up for no reason. But yeah. But that being said, I know the ones, like, they're also my actual former students comment on there as well. So whatever, it's neat. It's nice that I was able to, when I first started teaching, I had to like try to keep it a big secret that I was a stand-up comedian. So I like removed all my videos, all my YouTube videos from the internet. So I thought I made them unlisted But some of my students that first week, really, it was a group of girls, young male teacher, and they were just Googling away at me, I guess, and Googled me harder than I Googled myself, and found like some like Muslim online news publication had my clip on, and they somehow found that, and then the whole, all my classes knew I did stand up.
Yeah, man, that's so you're doing this, and you tell your mom, and then she cries, and then you decide, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and you get these little successes. Were you did you know that you were fun? Well, because you're fucking funny, right? But did you know, like, as in because there are certain kinds of comedians. There's some comedians I know.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Like, I was a funny guy with my friends, and I owe a lot of it to my friends that I grew up with. Those American friends I was talking about, because that was sort of our friendship culture, was just like brutally shitting on each other, making fun of each other constantly. And a lot of times it was, them ganging up on me. So I was funny in class, I always was trying to find ways to make people laugh. So yeah, I wasn't one of those comedians who was just a writer and just sort of, which there's a lot of those, there's a lot of comedians you meet and they're like, I wasn't really a funny guy. I just, stand-up comedy is like a craft, anyone can learn it. Anyone can pursue it. But no, I would say I was a funny kid growing up.
Yeah. The way that you work is like your delivery and your timing and, all of those aspects. It seems like it comes very naturally to you. Did you take any courses or any?
No.
Nothing. Just kind of writing, joke structure, anything, nothing like that.
No, man. Like, and this is sort of a old school belief, but I don't think anyone should take stand-up comedy classes. That, like, I don't know. It's a little bit of an emotional thing for me. Not emotional, but I am biased in that. Like, obviously, you could take a stand-up course and it can't hurt you. But I think mostly they're a little predatory, and I don't think you need to really get a school and to go through comedy school. Just go to open mics, man. Like any city, it'll have its comedy scene and it'll have its open mics, and that's the breeding ground. Those are the trenches. That's where you learn. You just learn by doing, and you learn by watching your peers, and that's how you do it. And obviously I'm biased because that's how I did it, and I romanticized it a little too much. But I never took any courses, and I think for the most part, you don't really need to just go up at the open mics and just start.
So your first open mic ever, you're going up on. Had you ever? You said you play guitar and everything. Had you ever been up on stage? Did you have stage fright?
No, I had crazy stage fright. And I remember being. My friends all came out. That's another classic mistake. So if anyone is thinking about doing it, if there's any young not Muslim comedians who want to try it, don't bring your friends out to support you for your first open mic, because you'll just regret that. Because you're not going to be funny at first. It's just like anything else. You're not going to be good at it at first. You'll learn to become good at it. So my supportive friends came out and watched me like brutally bomb. Were nice about it, I guess. The girls, my girlfriends to this day who were there will still be like, no, it was funny that first time, but it wasn't. It was terrible. But yeah, it was just it's a bar in Houston that no longer exists. And brought out my friends. We did the open mic. It went terribly. Did it again. Went terribly. And then...
Wait, so the first time it goes terribly, how long between the first time and the second time?
It was a week.
A week? What is it... what made you want to go up? Did you have the sense that I guess that's where the security aspect comes in, where you said that you're very secure and sort of self-assured, because it would take a lot of that to go up, and because I've seen a lot of people that's where they get eliminated. They just start feeling like shit about themselves, and they think, okay, so you bombed the first time, did you bomb the second time too?
Yeah. But they weren't like I mean, they were complete bombs, but like I got like maybe a little chuckle here from like one guy, you know, and that was enough to keep me going. And then it's a lot of also like once you go for the first time, going up for the first time is the fucking scariest thing in the world. Yeah. And so once you do that, then going up a second time is tremendously easier. So then
like what do you have to lose? That kind of thing.
Exactly. And I'd done it once, and you know, it was exciting. It's so exciting. And then I wanted to do it again. And then after the second time, something clicked in my head. A lot of people, they get this from the very first time they get on stage. I didn't get it. I didn't really get like what makes a joke, like set up, punchline. How do you actually do that? And because again, you know, I didn't take a class or anything, so I had to figure it out on my own. Something clicked. And then the third time I went up, I had all these new jokes, and they were actually jokes this time, and they worked. And
yeah,
you know, for the most part. And then that's when I was like on board.
Yeah. And it
not
was
doing it professionally, but just to keep doing it.
Right. It was a move to New York because of the comedy?
Yes. Yeah. It was you know, I've been doing comedy for 6 years in Houston, and I really like hit a ceiling in Texas comedy, and getting to the point where I'm at 6 years. I've done all I can in Texas. I need to either move now to New York or LA before I become one of those guys who've been doing it for 10 years in Texas and have invested so much that now it would be silly to move. You know, I want to move while it's still a smart option to move. You know what I mean? Like after 10 years, then you don't want to start over after 10 years. But after 5-6 years, you can start over as still a young guy and go and do it.
I was, so, you know, when I was growing, and I had told you before, I'm an old man. So, you know, when I was growing up, first thing I heard, I think when I was, 11 years old, was Eddie Murphy's Delirious.
Yeah.
In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, heard it very quietly. And then someone sneaked me a VHS tape of Raw when Raw came out. And someone brought it from, you know, the US, one of the kids who was going there. And I watched that every time my parents would be away from the house.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
So I got pretty addicted to it, in a sense.
Yeah.
It just, to me, was a purest art form, because I used to play guitar, I used to play music. And I thought, you know, so I've got generally an artistic kind of family. A lot of people do different things. But this was just you and your microphone. It's just your brain, your voice, and a microphone.
Yeah.
Right. And you can just yell really loud. You don't even need the microphone. The microphone's just an amplification element. That's it. There's no instruments. There's nothing else. And you can just, using that, you can have, you know, an audience completely enraptured for an hour, 2 hours. And
if you're really good, you know, like Eddie Murphy.
Well, if you're really good, and just get, you know, loads of money for it too. But so I just thought it was, but there weren't any. So I'd seen these comedians that we just talked about. I'm a huge fan of Dave Chappelle and these guys too. But I hadn't seen a lot of. I was like, okay, well, I guess brown people, Pakistanis, Indians, you know, they don't really go into comedy. But recently, in the last 10 years, I noticed a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of people, you know, who've come out and they've started, you know, doing comedy. So, you know, Aziz Ansari is one of them.
Yep.
Kumail Nanjiani, he had a special called Beta Male, you know, before he did all the other stuff, which is great.
Kumail's great. Kumail's the best brown comedian. That's what I think. Yeah. Kumail's my favorite brown comedian. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's absolutely hilarious. And so what's funny is that, you know, Kumail, when he used to do his stand up back in the early days, he used to talk about, you know, well, he was an atheist, right? So he used to talk about it. Aziz Ansari, there was an article written about him in the New York Times where they said that he was religious or he was Muslim. He sent them a correction, and then they had to, the New York Times corrected it. He was like, he does not identify as Muslim. Mr. Ansari is an atheist. But these guys, I've noticed that in the comedy world, especially, it seems like they this idea of being, and you talked about George Carlin, you talked about, like, you know, a bunch of other people, and it really seems like, and you yourself included, what is it about comedians that are brown that such a disproportionate number of them are not religious. I mean, is it that, you know, you're talking about challenging norms, you're talking about looking at the things around you, establishments or structures, and trying to break it all down, and it just kind of naturally fits? Or
Maybe, yeah. So Hassan, he's an exception. Hassan Minhaj, he's a practicing Muslim.
yeah. There are many exceptions too.
Yeah. Dave Chappelle, he's Muslim.
Yeah.
But
even
yeah,
they, I mean, they're not super like Dave Chappelle never talks about.
Dave, I don't want to say anything actually, but I know Hassan. Like I know Hassan is like pretty like 5 a day Muslim from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But Dave seems probably that he'd be more mellow. But anyways, I think it's that. But I don't know if it's particular with Islam. Like, I mean, I think the same proportion would apply to like American comedians who grew up Christian. I mean, I know very few Christian comedians. I know very few Muslim comedians. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's stand-up is linked to, I don't know. I don't like romanticizing stand-up too much, so I don't want to say it's like, oh, it's about like freedom of thought or anything like that. I think that maybe that aspect is there, but I think it's also just like stand-up is sort of a debaucherous world, and so like it takes place in bars. It's a lot of alcohol involved. It's profane, you know. So I think that serves as a filter from religion, and then there also is like a world of religious like clean family comedy, and it's usually pretty bad comedy, but it exists. But yeah, you're right. It's not in the world of when we think of like the greats of stand up. It's definitely not.
Yeah, I've noticed that even the ones who are you know that the HBO series Crashing that Pete Holmes did.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, I was watching it, and he was a sort of a Christian comedian, and he kind of is holding on to it and not really in doubts, and like it was a really good story. But I've kind of seen that, I guess, you know, when your job is to go out and really take everything, a lot of it's self-deprecating, so you take things about yourself, about the things that you believed in or the things you identify with, and you try to find, you know, the holes in it and just find, I guess, materials.
Yeah.
It sort of feels like it's a natural way to go.
It is, you know. I was being a little harsh earlier. I mean, yeah, stand up is about finding an angle, finding an observation, finding something that you have on your own that's a thought that you can make into a joke that no one else has. So I think like the pressure for stand-up comedians to be original, to have your own thought, to you know, say, then that goes hand in hand with sort of thinking critically, which, you know, you could argue goes hand in hand with, you know, criticizing religion.
Yeah. So we talk. So your family kind of, I mean, they've seen your bits and they've seen your performances, and how they reacted to it.
Supportive, like you know, I'm glad I ended up making, because when I first started stand up, you know, my first year, the jokes were not what I am now. The jokes were just like sort of crass, you know, jokes. And at that point, my mom would have been very ashamed of my comedy. But, you know, my parents have good taste in comedy. Like growing up, they really monitored what I was allowed and not allowed to watch, but they made exceptions for shows that they enjoy. So I would watch Seinfeld and SNL and The Simpsons with my parents because they enjoyed those shows. So they have good taste in comedy. And eventually when I sort of started finding myself as a comedian and what kind of stuff I want to do and bring to the table, then like a little bonus to that was that, wow, I'm becoming a comedian that for the most part my parents would be on board with, because even my dad, you know, again, my dad's a religious Muslim, but he's not some sort of a zealot or anything. He's a open-minded guy. He has a lot of interests and he loves comedy as well. So even all my material where I make fun of Muslims or Islam, my dad enjoys that as well. So I am blessed to have, you know, cool parents in that regard, and they enjoy my comedy, which is which is really nice. Because I know so many Muslims, American or Canadian, who like, you know, are growing up with that sort of cultural battle where you're raised by immigrants. Then a lot of times, you know, I grew up with so many of them. So many kids in my generation grow up and have either two options. They could either not show their parents their true selves, or they can show them their true selves and be shunned in, you know, different levels, you know. But
yeah,
I'm one of the very lucky ones where I get to, my parents appreciate my work, they appreciate my content, appreciate who I am, so I get to actually be myself with my, you know, immigrant parents, my Muslim dad, and it's fine, and it's great. So I feel blessed for that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So Houston has a huge Desi community, or South Asian.
Yes, very big.
Very big. Yeah, no. So, you know, was there, you know, your parents probably, been coming from Pakistan, probably had other Pakistani friends or Indian friends or Muslim friends and so on.
Yes. Yeah.
How did they? I mean, not just the comedy, but overall, you know, you going out, becoming sort of less religious, and then eventually becoming an atheist. How was there any reaction from them? Did you get any backlash? Was there any? Because until a few years, I mean, even now, it's a serious thing. Apostasy from Islam. I mean, you became an apostate, you leave the religion. It's considered a big crime. I actually know, you know, one of my really good friends is in jail in Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
His name is Raif Badawi. I think a lot of people know about him. He was nominated for the Nobel Prize twice, Peace Prize. So he's like a prisoner of conscience, and he's jailed. Now it's been, I think, 7 years just for writing a blog. And he wasn't even an open atheist or anything. He just wanted to talk about secularism, separation of religion and state. And they charged him with apostasy. So it's actually, so, you know, you were talking about your questions about Adam and Eve, right? And there's this guy named Mashal Khan in Pakistan who asked the same questions in his dorm room at the university, at a university in Peshawar, and they lynched him the next day to death, right? So it's a, so I mean, even though that stuff doesn't really happen in the US anymore or in Canada, you know, apart from very rare instances, it's still a taboo to sort of be part of the Muslim community and say, okay, I don't believe in God anymore. And since, you know, you're out there, you're in public, you're doing gigs, you're talking about it openly, was there any backlash from sort of like family, friends, relatives?
No, I mean, no, there wasn't. Again, I feel lucky with the people I grew up with, but yeah, I mean, the Pakistani community is so large in Houston where you're not really like, there's always an advantage of having like a large community, is that you're not sort of stuck with this few people. You get to sort of pick and choose, you know. So the community that I was growing up, all my family friends were pretty open people. And I mean, they were all Muslim, but there was never this craziness to it or you know. So,
yeah.
And you know, that being said, I'm 100% sure that, you know, behind my parents' back and behind my back, they might have some negative, for sure. Some of them had some negative things to say. I mean, I'm not thinking of anyone specifically, but just laws of probability dictate that, you know, someone had something negative to say about it behind our backs, but it was behind our backs. So that's good. That's fine. Thank you for not making it a thing, you know, that we have to deal with. So yeah, no, it was, I'm very,
well, he's better than Dane Cook.
Sorry?
No, it was a bad Dane Cook. I should never make jokes to comedians.
No, make jokes, you know.
No, there's a no. I think that's sort of true. I mean, when I wrote the book and it became very public, because before I used to restrict the number of people I used to talk to about this, it didn't feel like it felt like it would be a huge deal. It was like, okay, once this comes out and people know, there's a lot of people who are just going to stop talking to me, and it didn't happen.
Yeah,
you know?
That's nice.
It didn't happen, and it was funny because you know, my book's called The Atheist Muslim. It came out in New York, right? So it came out in the U.S. And I've told the story here before. My mom, who I had always argued with growing up, and she used to say, "You get really annoying when you talk against religion," and she didn't like it. Then I put all that annoying stuff in a book and wrote it. and then she the day that the book came out, she told me, she's like, it'll do very well, inshallah.
Nice.
That's a book called Baby Muslim. And I would have made that the cover blurb if she said it earlier.
Yeah.
So
That's
it
hilarious.
is. I feel like there's a normalization element happening because it's, for a long time people didn't really see this kind of thing. At least when I was growing up, I mean, they'd sent Salman Rushdie. Everybody wanted him dead. I mean, you had to go into hiding and just for writing a book. And now I think it's just, the whole idea of secular Muslims or this. And this is one thing that I think is great about your story is that we hear a lot about the sort of the formula story of really, really oppressive religious parents and the kids trying to bust out. But you've got a Republican religious dad, and you've got a mom who's sort of she's secular, and then you have your family split half, and everybody gets along, everybody talks, and nobody has done anything, and you go out and you talk about it openly. So I think that's
and those are my favorite. That's my favorite way to approach subjects, where it's like, here's a story I can tell about culture, which my audience is Americans. My audience is largely non-Muslims, non-Pakistanis. So here's a part of my story I can tell that won't reinforce what they believe about Muslims and Pakistanis, but it will instead add nuance to it. And we're like, I didn't think of it. I couldn't think of a picture of a family that way. That wasn't my image of a Pakistani family or a Muslim family.
Right.
So I try to go for that, and not even for like some humanitarian reason, just because that makes for better comedy if it's something that's interesting and not something that they've heard before.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got about I don't know 5 or 6 minutes left. We might go a couple of minutes over if that's okay.
Yeah, totally fine.
Yeah. So because I want to talk to you about this one thing that was that I've thought about. Again, your comedies, the stuff that I've seen it's really smart. It's really nuanced.
Thanks, man.
And the reason that I played the burqa ban piece is because this is something I've thought of for a long time, and I've never really been figured out how to exactly articulate it, and much less do it in a way that makes people laugh and that has punchlines the way that you did. Is that there's this, there's the woke liberal side, right, that just wants you to, from my perspective, and I am a leftist like you, like I'm a leftist liberal guy like you, and they just want you to be really Muslim because they have that narrative. I've gone to when I went to, my brother used to live in California for a bit. Went to visit him, went to a party, and I walked into the thing, and they told me, they're like, "Oh, listen, if you want, the non-alcoholic." They're telling me where the non-alcoholic drinks are. They're trying to find, and then I felt bad. I was like, if I say that I don't believe in this stuff, it's gonna. It felt like it would.
Or they're doing it for themselves. It's the same as like. It's the mirror of like in the 90s when the Christian conservative right were real big about like, Marilyn Manson or whatever. And they have their own ways to make themselves feel like good people, and like going to church and all that. And then I get very bothered at all this wokeness. Cause
I noticed that. And that was refreshing to me, especially considering that you're a fellow left liberal. But, at the same time, there's also then on the other side, here I am. I'm somebody who, in my book, I criticized Islam. I talked about, why I don't believe in it and why I decided not to go for any other religion either. That's another thing I get a lot on Twitter, especially. He's like, well, you left Islam, but Jesus is waiting.
Yeah.
Why would I?
Why would you? This makes no sense, but this makes a lot of sense. Like it's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah. When it comes to the belief and believing in things without any evidence, it's exactly the same thing. Yeah. So you have this other side. And you have the Trump presidency, and there's all of this rhetoric about, Muslims, and they're, and there's a part of me that wants to, ever since sort of Trump got elected, is I don't want to criticize it the way that I used to before.
Yeah, dude.
Because I don't, you know what I mean? It's
100%.
I want to be honest, and I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it the same way, but I want to, the messaging. Like it's weird because I don't want to hold back and I don't want to say, okay, I'm not going to.
I love talking about this. This is extremely interesting because it's like in the times of Trump, like I don't think like old school Bill Maher sort of takes on Islam are good during like this whole Trump era, you know, where Muslims are really under attack, and then to paint with these broad strokes about like the dangers of Islam, where there's all these people who are salivating to hear like stuff like that because they're so angry at Muslims, you know. So, so there's a lot of stuff I want to say. So, first thing I want to say is that like during the Trump presidency, it's sort of like, I identify as a Muslim more in a weird way. Like I'm not a practicing Muslim at all. I don't believe in Islam, but when I see like the leader of the country like attack Muslims, I'm thinking about, you know, my immediate family, all the Pakistanis and the Muslims that I grew up with. So I get like, it's really like, how dare you say that about us Muslims, you know, as someone who's not Muslim, but I identify more as a Muslim culturally. I think now that we feel a little bit under threat.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second because I want the audience and the people listening to this to bookmark this. Okay, so we've talked earlier about this article that, you know, Fareed Zakaria, also a very prominent guy from the Muslim community. He's an Indian Muslim, raised Indian Muslim. He's secular now. He wrote an article in 2015 when Trump announced his Muslim ban, right? Remember when he was running for president, he's like, we got a ban, temporary ban. Well, at that time, he just said we got to ban all Muslims coming into the country. So
we figure out what's going on. That's what he kept saying.
Figure out what's going on.
Figure out what's going on.
And then, that week, Fareed Zakaria wrote an article in the Washington Post, and the title was "I am a Muslim," right? And then he said, you know, but I'm outraged at what the Republicans are doing now, not because I'm Muslim, but because I'm American. But the title was "I am a Muslim," and the whole article was about how he's embracing the Muslim identity. This is something he didn't do before. He was a wine critic for Slate, right? This is the guy who came from a Muslim family from India, went to Harvard, became one of the most influential journalists in the world, where you know presidents of the U.S. have taken meetings with him to see what he thinks about things and what they should do, take counseling and advice from him. And so this guy really moved beyond that identity. And then he wrote in the article, he's like, you know, I haven't been to a mosque in ages. You know, I know my wife is Christian, my kids, I haven't raised them Muslim. You know, my own views, I'm somewhere between agnosticism and deism. So essentially, he's not a believing Muslim at all. But
you can't say that in the like you can be culturally Jewish, that sort of exists, but like I don't know if saying you're a culturally Muslim really exists. You know,
but that's the point I'm trying to get to. So Fareed Zakaria, now he has embraced this Muslim identity, not the Islamic belief, but the Muslim identity, and so, you know, we have this guy who had a birth identity. He moved beyond it. He reached beyond it. He integrated. And this is what they want, like integrate. And then he integrates. And then you have this rhetoric and this bullshit that comes from Trump and now all of the Republican Party, this right-wing sort of nut jobbery. And that causes him to go back.
Yeah.
Right. And embrace the other thing, which is what I was saying right now, and which is what you're saying too. Like there's a
well, I mean, I will say there's a difference between me and him in that, like, I'm not going out on stage and telling people, hey guys, I'm a Muslim comedian now. You know, I'm going on stage talking about how I'm not Muslim. I don't identify as Muslim. But I just mean like internally, like I felt it in like when Muslims are being attacked, I felt attacked. Right. That's sort of what I mean. Like that's sort of like it's subconsciously like it didn't change how I want people to perceive me. I don't want people to perceive me as a Muslim, but I do. When Trump attacks Muslims, I feel attacked myself, and it's because he's attacking, you know, the people I grew up with, the people who raised me, the people that I love. So yeah, I guess it was just a comment on that. On it ironically brings people who are not Muslims like a little bit closer to their identity. I don't know if I would go out and write an article and say that I'm Muslim, you know, but
well, I mean, that's the kind of thing he does. I mean, he comments on like his medium is different. You kind of, I think the way that you do things in your medium, you get a lot of not this specific point, but a lot of similar points across that. And I think arguably, I think that comedians and artists and musicians, and I think they tend to do it in a more sort of effective way because your guard's down, right? So I know that, you know, you haven't written an article, but I just think that this is an internal process that's happening. Like there's this huge argument now about hijab and girls, should they wear the hijab? Is it oppression or is it not oppression? And I've talked about girls. I've corresponded to young women, young girls in high school and college who have argued. They have doubts about the hijab.
Yeah.
Their parents always made them wear it. They argued with their parents. They're trying to say, well, the Quran doesn't say this, or they're having their sort of internal rebellion with their parents within their community. And then, this whole thing comes out about, we got to ban all Muslims from entering the US. And suddenly, they want to keep it on because now it's turned from an ideological argument that we're having with their parents internally, which was great, to an identity thing. So it's gone from Islamic belief to Muslim identity.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's good. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So, and that's happening a lot. And I think it's if that's what they want to do, if they want, I don't think it's good for, what we do with secular jihadists is we're trying to normalize the idea of secularism, atheism, agnosticism, being able to leave your faith, just like all of the other lapsed Catholics, secular Jews, they joke about it all the time. So we're trying to normalize that for the Muslim world because a lot of young Muslims are leaving the faith. But
it's interesting, like the unique place Islam is right now, because I think it's a little bit like again, I'll go back to Bill Maher. I think Bill Maher, like during the Obama administration, when Obama was bombing Muslims, but no one cared. Like the country didn't hate Muslims. I mean, as much. I don't know, I'm making crazy generalizations, but you know what I mean, right? There wasn't this whole ban Muslims movement under Obama like there is under Trump. So I'll say that. So Bill Maher during those days, like the movie, like whatever that movie he was, but he was one of the people on the left who would really go after Islam, and and at the time I enjoyed that, but now when Muslims are really like in a lot of ways under attack in this country under Trump, who's like has white nationalists in his circle. I think Bill Maher, that whole Bill Maher take of just like, let's shit on Islam just like we shit on Christianity, I think it can be a little reckless. I mean, obviously we could still make fun of anyone who believes anything, but I think it's more dangerous now to be like, it's Islam. Like if you look at the problems in the Middle East, let's blame Islam. And I think like, no, putting it just on the religion, I think is silly. Like, let's look at geopolitics. Let's look at why, like, what are the underlying reasons why there's so many problems with the Middle East. To say it's Islam itself, I think, is not only lazy, but I think it's dangerous right now in the current climate. And I think we have more of a responsibility to look at history and why it is that people in less prosperous countries after World War I and the British divided everything up and put in puppet leaders and all these revolutions had to happen and all this strife and all these power vacuums, and you analyze all that and then you can paint a clear picture of why there's all these problems in the Middle East. But that old Bill Maher and look at these Muslims, I think we need to put in the past now. Yeah.
I think that the way that the message is being said has to change. One thing I would so I actually agree with you. I think that I feel like different sides don't take into account different things. So I partly agree with you and partly disagree with you in the sense that with a lot of over here, there's like this, the left and the liberals, they kind of really focus on the foreign policy, the U.S. foreign policy. What we've done has really screwed up everything there. But having grown up there, the Islamic theocracy there, like the government of Pakistan, the way they have all of these insane laws and that they can back up because of verses.
The thing is, I became aware
and you can't go up again. You can be a lawyer in
because
court saying, "Okay, I want this."
Just like people living here have certain experiences.
I had my 50-year-old guy.
I did,
and they're like, "Well,
there's a lot of new things
that they'll pull it out, and then you can't say anything because then it becomes everybody's like my family. They're accepting of this.
In a way, that is
corresponding with all these people from all over the world. So it is. I mean, I guess that's one of the things about this, about just going through this experience with, our sort of religious upbringing or South Asian upbringing, and then whether it's comedy or whether it's writing books, whatever it is, you continue to you continue to learn new things and your mind open. And you've made like massive changes in your life. You grew up in a religious family and you changed your mind. You thought for yourself. It's very clear from your comedy that you are sort of very self-aware, very introspective, and you do think for yourself. That's actually one of the most important things. Like it never matters to me whether I agree or disagree with people, because I actually enjoy disagreeing with people, because that's the kind of work I do. Yeah, it is. But I just have a lot of respect for people who are open. So
same here, man.
Yeah. So I'm gonna unless is there anything you want to say, number one, and the other thing is, how can people find you? What can they? I know you have a YouTube channel, but
yeah,
do you have anything else set up where people can?
Okay, just Jaffer Khan, just on YouTube. I have like, that's where you really watch my stand up. I have started this new project I'll plug with. It's strange. It's not for everyone, as I've seen so far. It's like my stand up has done pretty well on YouTube. This new project has not, but that's okay. Maybe some people will like it, but I like it. I'm not doing a good job advertising it. It's very good. It's me and my old buddy from Houston. We're both quarantined right now, and we used to have a lot of fun together as two comedians. And so now we've just been doing these Zoom sketches, 5 a week, about just being on lockdown, quarantine. And it's me and my buddy Albert De Leon, and it's just called Jaffer and Albert. So on Instagram, look up Jaffer and Albert. You do the same on YouTube. We're trying to get our Instagram thing going. We just started it like maybe 3 weeks ago, but because we have so much time on our hands, we're trying to do a video a day, Monday through Friday. So we got 15 videos up in 3 weeks, which is something. But I think they're very funny, so check them out, Jaffer and Albert.
I've seen them. I saw one where you were talking about your family problems, and he just kept on. Yeah, the one about the adopted cousin and everything.
Yes, yeah. I definitely play the straight man in this duo. Albert's the crazy guy. I think they're very funny. Hopefully, if you like them, if you check them out, you might like them too.
Yeah. So yeah, Jaffer and Albert, check that out. Your Instagram handle?
Jaffer Khan Comic.
Jaffer Khan Comic. Okay, so all of this stuff is going to be in the description of the video for everybody who's listening. And really do go and check this out. I mean, this guy's like...
watch my stand-up first on YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, just watch it. It's funny, it's insightful, it's really, really smart. And, man, I hope to, see you rise to this. I hope a lot of other people learn about you.
Man. Thanks so much for having me. I had a great time. This is a really good thing you got going.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think that we're going to... Yeah, it'd be great to talk again. We should. And if you ever come to Toronto to do gigs after this whole quarantine thing is over, then
let's do it.
I'll be there. It's gonna be fun. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
The secular jihadists have been made possible thanks to the Illuminati and the covert support of Israel and the CIA. That's what we have been told, but we haven't received our checks yet. If you like what we do, please support us. Share the podcast with your friends. Write and tweet us with topic and guest suggestions. Or head over to secularjihadist.com and give $1 or more for exclusive access to live video. Have your questions read and answered on the air, and more. Till next time, may the flying spaghetti monster be with you.